through a circuit. Okay. That kid's not wearing a diaper.
Oh my goodness, he really isn't. Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Justin and you are watching That Christian Vlogger. On today's episode, I am inviting a good friend of mine, Brackin, from, where do you guys live in? North Carolina. North Carolina.
Yep.
And he's actually a YouTuber as well, someone we've connected really well over the internet, but it's really cool to be able to meet you in person.
Likewise.
And today we're gonna be talking to you guys kind of about minimalism, about living in, what it's like living in a tiny house and van living, that kind of a thing, and where that intersects with our Christian faith. But why don't you introduce yourself a little bit, tell us about who you are, what you guys do on your channel,
sure,
and everything else like that.
Yeah, hey, welcome, thanks. My name is Brackin. I have a wife, Lindsay. We have 4 boys and 1 on the way. We live in a tiny house. It's a 14 by 40 shed. We write and record music in a home studio, and we exist just to challenge, encourage, and inspire you to live your life in a more meaningful way for the sake of others.
So we've been hanging out this morning and just chatting about life and actually getting to hear your story. You were into like working as like a park ranger and everything else like that, not really living your life for Jesus, but then something took place and your your mentality kind of shifted.
Yep.
Towards living more purposefully, living for Jesus a little bit more. Can you tell me about that kind of transition experience for you?
Yeah, I mean, I grew up in a normal church setting, a typical suburban home, and that's what I wanted for my life when we got married. We bought a house, got a dog, we had a picket fence, although it wasn't white, and you know, just a regular job. And those things are all well and good. We need somewhere to live and we need to work, but I found that all my time, money, and energy was focused on things that served myself and not others. Then I started reading the New Testament, and Jesus' words really just got a hold of my heart. I was convicted, quite honestly, about how I was living. And
what was maybe the verse that stuck in your heart or your mind the most?
Yeah,
yeah.
I would say that I worried a lot about my house and about my possessions. And when Jesus says to seek first the kingdom of God, and all these things will be added unto you, I think a lot of Christians just use that verse in a general context, like seek first the kingdom of God.
You'll get a good education.
Yeah, you'll get a good education and a good car, and you'll have a nice camera. But he was specifically referring to just our basic necessities, food and clothing. And
we were talking about how even Jesus mentioned about his own life. You know, foxes have their holes, and you know,
birds have nests.
But the Son of Man's got nowhere even to like put his head down.
Yep. And then he sent out his disciples 2 by 2. And at one point he sent out the 70, and he told them not to take a cloak, a money bag, or anything, but just to live on faith. Yeah. And we were like, whoa, what would that look like if we lived out what we believed? And so we just started to do that a little bit.
And so, of course, the natural conclusion is to get rid of everything you have, to live in a tiny house, and to have like this van where you transport your family. But that still seems kind of a leap. Like, why did you choose that manifestation of it as opposed to maybe just living a little bit, you know, less extravagantly? Like, how did you get all the way to more of like a minimalist type of living?
So basically the answer to your question comes down to love. You know, the Apostle Paul says, if you sell all you have and give to the poor, but you have not love, then you're just making noise.
Yeah. And
we thought, you know, we could do all of these things, but really, what's the reason why? I mean, there's a lot of people who are downsizing, living simply. There's a whole magazine dedicated to just that, which is sort of ironic if you think about it. But yeah, so if we love others and want to serve others, then what can we remove from our lives to enable us to do that? And really, almost everything could be removed from our lives to a certain degree. And we thought, let's just go all the way to the bare bottom. In fact, my wife and I were trying to get out of debt at one point, and we were borrowing some land on a friend's farm, and we lived in a tent for about 6 months.
Oh, wow.
In order to get out of debt. So essentially the Lord stripped us down just to the basics.
Okay.
To get us vulnerable, to get us listening to Him and paying attention to His voice. And then He started to provide the things for us that we needed to do the ministry that He laid on our hearts.
That's really cool. Now, I'll be honest, I don't think that I'm ever going to get to the point in my life where Emily and I are living out of a tent, you know, on someone's land. Like, I don't think that I could ever go that far, but I love hearing your story because it really challenges me in thinking what truly matters in life. What really are the things that bring me happiness and joy, and then what else can I strip away so that I can serve other people better? Another airplane. We must be like, oh yeah, the Portland airport is like right over there.
Yep.
recently I watched the documentary on minimalism on Netflix, and it was really intriguing that there's like this whole movement, this whole emphasis where people are trying to say, you know what, there are things in life that we spend so much time and money on, to impress people that we'll never see again. It just seems like a very careless way of living. Mm-hmm. And when I look at the Gospels, when I see what Jesus is doing and the example that he lives, his whole life's purpose was to serve other people, was to make the world a better place in some way, shape, or form. And I find that when I'm so focused on what I'm wearing, what I'm buying, and all these different kinds of things, that I lose focus on what matters most. Mm-hmm. And so to me, that's what minimalism really at its core as a Christian boils down to, is focusing on what actually matters, what has an eternal value, and trying to invest in those things more than anything else.
Yeah, and when Jesus said to sell all you have and give to the poor, I think he meant it, but it's not just a one-time thing. It's just an ongoing process. Like, maybe at one point in time we lived in a tent, but right now we live in a 560 square foot house, which feels like a mansion. But
even with all of you got like 6 in the family right now, going on 7.
Yep. But it works out. We've learned just to dwell there peacefully with each other. But even so, my heart can become attached to it. So I need to say unattached to the things and say, this is just a shell. We come here, we eat, sleep, and live here. But ultimately, we want to reach out beyond our home, and I think that's the real challenge.
Yeah, definitely. So let me ask you this, as someone myself who's really strongly considering some of the principles of minimalism and applying it to my life, what has been the biggest blessing and the biggest challenge of adopting this kind of philosophy on life?
Okay, so I'll start with the biggest challenge.
Okay.
And that is, for my sake and probably for yours, we're married men. You're going to have a difference with your spouse or your family, maybe even your parents, about what this means, what this looks like. People are not going to understand that the Lord has pricked your heart and that you really want to be faithful and sensitive to his will in your life. So the challenge would be stepping out in faith. It's just that, and saying, you know what, this is important, it's for a purpose, and ultimately the drawbacks are worth the benefits and the gains and the rewards for the sake of others. Cool. The greatest challenge that we found is that by working together as a team on a singular focus, that my wife and I have grown together in ways that we never would have otherwise. Okay, go by.
So you just said that was the greatest challenge, or is that the greatest blessing?
Well, I would say that it's both. It's a challenge in that we have differences to work out, but the blessing is that by working out those differences together, that we're becoming closer knit as a family. My boys we have a family purpose. We actually have a family mission statement. To work together as a family team is really important, and this has provided us an opportunity to do that.
That's super cool. Any last words you want to share with my audience regarding just living simply and living purposefully?
I would say, first of all, that it is possible. We live in a land of excess, we live in a land of waste, and we live in a land where opportunities abound. I'll give you one example. We, after we lived in a tent, moved into a van, that grew into a camper. We found ourselves in transition at one point. So through a circumstance and through a friend, we found an older lady who needed someone to caretake her property.
Okay. And
we were looking for a place to live, so she invited us to live on her property, and we worked there in exchange for a rent. So we essentially live rent-free by helping someone else. It's a win-win situation, and we have found those situations exist everywhere because we're human beings. We want to live in community. We want to help each other out. It just takes a little bit of creative thinking, but you can totally break out of the box if you put your mind to it.
Cool. Well, thank you so much for sharing your experience. I'm trying to draw lessons and principles for myself as I'm considering this, but I just want to say that your guys' story, your guys' life is an inspiration. See that there are other people out there who are really taking the challenge and the call of Jesus seriously. It really encourages me to do the same. So
Hallelujah.
I would encourage you guys, check out his channel. There will be a link in the description below. You guys talk a lot about what it's like to live kind of in this simple minimalist type of lifestyle, but you guys also do some really great music. You and your wife produce music together.
Yeah.
So you guys can check that out as well. But go check out his channel, give him some support.
Thanks a lot. God bless you guys.
Definitely, guys. And until next time, I'm that Christian vlogger, and I encourage you to experience faith in the first person. God bless.